Welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and once again, I'm going to be talking about the banned cards in the format. And I had planned to do this way ahead of time when I made my Banned in Commander video a few weeks ago. I knew, there was going to be a lot of comments telling me I had a bunch of horrible takes and why I'm wrong and all of that. And I didn't want to have to respond to everybody in the comments. It's very tedious having to respond to everyone, especially when it's, I literally say something in the video and then someone says that exact same thing in the comments. And I'm like, did you watch the video? Because I sort of explained my viewpoints quite a bit. However, I like to do this because this is a fantastic conversation to have for all of us, casual commander players, right? Again, I'm coming at this from a casual commander perspective, and people do get, I think a lot of people get confused. I read a lot of the comments. I actually just read the comments. I purposely avoided the comment section of that video for the last couple of weeks, and I just read the comments just now, right before I made this video, so I had everything fresh in my head. And of course, I grabbed a few. That's what I'm going to be doing in this video, is responding to a lot of the comments and my thought process. And I think a lot of people get confused because I have a channel where I talk about making janky decks and playing underwhelming commanders and playing casually and all this stuff. But then I'm making a ban video where I talk about unbanning all these really powerful cards. And I think people get confused about, like, why would I that opinion seems like it doesn't add up, right? And the opinion that I used to have was probably more likely to what everyone would expect me to have, which is, let's just ban all the cards that nobody likes, right? Which is, I wanted to ban Aetherflux Reservoir, Craterhoof Behemoth, got sick and tired of those cards. Let's ban all the land destruction, Armageddon, all that. Let's ban all the mana positive mana rocks. Let's essentially just ban every powerful card so that we don't ever have to worry about seeing it in a casual game. And the more I thought about it, that's a slippery slope where we're just going to, okay, well, now what, right? Now we're just going to start banning and banning and banning. And the more you do that, and ban free counter spells. I had this discussion on the Discord with my patrons, who some of them were like, well, I want all the free counter spells banned. And I'm like, but then what? Now you ban all the free counter spells, and then we're at the ban deflecting SWAT too, because that's free, right? Now we're going to ban flawless maneuver as well. That's free. Like, it just keeps going and going and going. And the more you do it, you're just opening the door for more people to say, okay, well, if Fierce Guardianship is banned, how come Deflecting SWAT isn't banned? So let's ban that too. And then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And where does it end? So I err on the side of not banning things now for that reason, because it's never going to end. And people are always going to be calling for cards to get banned. And so for me, it is, if you watch the video, and of course I would encourage you to go back and watch it before you watch this one, or it won't make a lot of sense. I err on the side of, let's just ban the cards that will literally ruin the format and are just absurd, or are just probably shouldn't be played in Magic at all. And then everything else, we'll just leave it up to a Rule Zero discussion, or are you actually playing casual commander, which I will get into with some of these comments as well. So that's all I'm going to be doing in this video. Again, we're getting back into the ban discussion, which is a really important discussion to have, I think, for this format. And then after that, there's also some questions that I saved towards the end that get into more broader topic about casual commander, and that's our sort of stuff. All right, so let's get into it. So these are actual comments that I took from that video. I'm not going to put any names here, just the questions. So first off, Black Lotus makes infinite mana on combo, and it's just a ritual. Which is what I said in the video, that it's essentially a ritual, which it is. That, it's just adding 3 mana and then it goes away. It used to be called a mono artifact. That's why it's called that. Channel is a ritual that doesn't go infinite. So what if they hit 1 life and add 39 colorless mana? They die to Simeon Spirit Guide plus Lavadart. So I grabbed this comment for a couple of reasons. First of all, I grabbed this comment because, of course, I had a lot of pushback on Black Lotus. Again, the expensive thing came up a lot, and I will just say, again, I will get to this in another comment. The expensive thing is not a good argument, just saying, but I'll get back to that. The Black Lotus makes infinite mana on combo, again, is a terrible argument, because there are many infinite mana combos in the format, and a lot of them come from commanders, guys. Okay, Zaxara and Freed from the Real, off the top of my head. Arixmethus, same thing. You have one of your combo pieces in the command zone. That's way better than a Black Lotus if you're looking for infinite mana, I think. If I'm looking for a deck that I just want to create infinite mana with, why would I jump through a bunch of hoops to connect Black Lotus with, Auriok Salvagers and try to get that when I can just make an Arixmethus or a Zaxara deck with Freed from the Real, and then I think there's one other card. So now I have my commander and two cards in the 99 that I can make infinite mana with. That seems like a lot easier way to do it, right? Again, that's just not a good argument, okay? And again, I will get back to this a lot. I am not the guy who's saying you should be doing this in a game. I'm the guy who's saying we're doing that already, guys. We're already doing that. So if your argument is we should ban every infinite mana combo in the format, okay. I mean, I don't know if that's a great plan. Again, we get into the slippery slope scenario where if your issue is I don't like infinite mana combos, I don't love them either. But, I recently made a Rasputin deck that had Eldrazi Displacer in there that makes infinite mana. And I put it in the deck. It's a very casual deck. But guess what? There's nothing in there that's just going to win you the game. Infinite mana does not equal win the game. Okay? It doesn't at all. Just so people are aware. I've played games against people where they're like, okay, I've displayed my infinite mana combo. Guess that's it. Let's pack it up. And I'm like, wait, infinite mana doesn't win you the game. How are you winning the game? Do you have a Exsanguinate in your hand or something? Or, right? You have to actually win the game. Infinite mana is great. And I've played that Rasputin deck online and gotten the infinite mana combo, and I just cast some stuff. That's it. That there is no infinite draw. There's no so you have to go. There's another step involved where, okay, you get infinite mana, but can you win the game with it? Right? Not a lot of deck. I don't know if I have a single deck, not a single deck that could win the game with infinite mana. I would just cast some stuff and that's it. Maybe draw some cards. Maybe that's it. That's all you can do. So I mean, even the I have infinite mana thing is like, okay, and then what? Right? It's good. Hey, is there anything else in Commander that's really good? Again, the comments I heard all the time about this is really busted. Is there anything in the format that's really busted or really good? We already have lots of that, right? So again, we're sort of repeating the same process here. The channel, and the reason I grabbed this one was the channel thing he made. I think he's trying to make the argument that Black Lotus is better than channel in Commander, maybe. This is the Fantasyland scenario, the Magic Christmas Land scenario where, well, what if this happened? First of all, how many Commander decks out there have Simian Spirit Guide and Lava Dart? I don't know. I'm sure some people play Simian Spirit Guide, maybe some people play Lava Dart. Those two cards in a deck, that can't happen very often. In a Commander game, right? That can't happen very often. And what are the chances your opponent has that in hand in that scenario, right? So the reason I brought this comment up specifically was it's dealing with the whole Black Lotus thing, but at the same time, it's dealing with the Magic Christmas Land scenario, which, again, there's lots of... I've played against lots of casual Commander decks that they just... Magic Christmas Land happened and they won the game on turn 4 or 5 or whatever. Sometimes that's going to happen, right? Sometimes people have, and this has happened to me before, where, look at that, I got an infinite combo in my deck I didn't even know. It just kind of happened. Right? This stuff just happens, guys, right? Moving on, though. With Time Walk, of course, another card that I got a lot of pushback on. Surprise, surprise. The issue is that you can use it mid-game along with other more expensive spells. It is practically a free turn. So it's not practically a free turn. Costs 2 mana. That's not free. It's a 2 mana. It's really busted. No question. It's really busted. I am of the opinion, okay, and again, this is not, I'm not being subjective here, guys. I'm trying to be objective about all of this, right? I'm looking at the bigger picture. There's already a ton of free turns in the format. Tons. There's tons of ways to take infinite turns in the format, okay? I get that, like, this is a cheaper version. That's it. I mean, that makes it better, no question. That makes it better. Great. But again, if I'm playing a casual commander game and on turn, so mid game, like 6, 7, turn 7, right? My opponent casts a time walk for 2 mana, and then they get to cast another spell. Okay, they cast their commander or whatever. I'm not thinking of the my opponent's going off scenario. Now we're not playing casual commander again, right? So for me, it's a really good extra turn spell, but it's just an extra turn spell. I mean, I'm of the opinion, here's a hot take, I don't think they should have ever done extra turns at all ever in Magic, period. I thought that was a mistake. I don't think extra turns should exist in the game. I think it's a silly concept that should have never existed. Of course, they did it, and Wizards of the Coast has this weird thing where they make a mistake with something, and then they try to fix the mistake. So, for example, the Moxes, right? The Moxes were a mistake. I don't think mana positive mana rocks is something they should have ever done either. So instead of just saying, okay, well, we screwed up, let's move on, they keep revisiting it. They come up with Mox Diamond, and then they come up with Mox Opal, and they're like, okay, well, let's keep doing this thing, except we'll tweak it a little. And of course, every time they do so, they come up with just another busted card that everybody, like, you're not fixing anything. You should have just abandoned it, right? You should have just, like, Richard Garfield did his thing. He realized Time Walk was busted, and Black Lotus was, all these things were busted. And instead of just saying, okay, we made some mistakes, let's move on, they kept on doing it. They just tried to fix it. So now we're going to make an extra turn spell. We're just going to make it cost a little bit more. I don't think they should have done extra turns at all. I don't think it should exist in the game. I don't like it. As a concept, I don't like it. So I'm not the guy sitting here. I've never used a extra turn spell definitely not in Commander. I don't think I've ever used it in any. I don't like extra turns. The whole concept of it, I don't like it. So I'm not making that argument for me. I'm trying to be objective here. Yeah, it's really good. Again, the argument that this card is really good, I mean, okay, is Dockside Extortionist really good? Is, Rhystic Study really good? Is Time Twister really good? Those other cards in certain scenarios might even be better, right? In my opinion. So, all right, next up, Soul Ring is not better than the Mox cards. Costing 0 is insanely good, and they give you colored mana. Sometimes you can't use colorless mana. Also, the more colors you have in your deck, the Moxes cards. And you saying there are other expensive cards that could be banned for accessibility is just classic whataboutism. There's no argument against the ban, just also for banning others. So again, two things I want to address here. I'll address the last comment first. So saying there are other expensive cards that could be banned for accessibility is just classic whataboutism. That's not whataboutism. What it is consistency. If I have two cards that do exactly the same thing, one is banned and one isn't, that's not a whataboutism. There are two. This doesn't make sense. And this is a lot of cards on this list, right? I said about Tellurian Academy and Gaia's Cradle. I'm not saying unban Tellurian Academy because it's not very good or it's super busted. Gaia's Cradle is also super busted. They're essentially the same. And with a lot of these things, and again, people think I'm just for unbanning all these busted cards because I want to see them in Commander games all the time. No, I want consistency. And if you want to ban Gaia's Cradle because it's just as good as Tellurian Academy, okay, I guess I'll be okay with that too, right? So a lot of these cards that I talk about, again, I just said, if you want to ban all the mana positive mana rocks, okay, I can get behind that, no problem. It's all the same to me. I say it all the time. It's all the same to me. What's the difference, right? If you want to ban Gaia's Cradle because, great, whatever. If you want to ban all the extra turn spells, fine, I'm on board with that. If you want to ban all the land destruction stuff, okay, but it's all the same, sort of. Certain scenarios, certain ones are better, but for the most part, it's just the same thing, right? So it's not classic whataboutism. It is, okay, if you have one card, if you're banning a card because it's really expensive, then shouldn't you ban all the cards that are really expensive? It makes sense to me, right? I mean, this guy's making the argument that you should also ban all the other expensive cards. So, and again, horrible argument because it's a slippery slope. Okay, so we're going to ban every card that's over $5,000, but then everybody's like, okay, well, this card costs $1,000. I can't afford that, so let's ban that too. Okay, so now we're going to ban all the cards over $1,000, right? What's expensive, right? I talked about this in my, prices video. Expensive is different for everybody, okay? When I was 18 years old, $20 was a lot of money for me, a lot of money. Now, not so much. I mean, inflation doesn't help, but you know what I mean? Like, what's expensive? For a lot of people, they can afford to spend maybe $100. I've had people tell me that my $300 underwhelming commanders decks are that's too expensive, right? What's expensive? It's different for everybody. So saying ban all the expensive cards, what does that even mean? What's expensive? Is $100 expensive? For a lot of people, they're not going to spend $100 on a Magic card. In fact, I probably wouldn't. That's a lot of money, yes. And it depends on how much do you want to spend on Magic cards. So again, this whole prices thing is just a terrible, terrible argument, okay? And again, the accessibility thing as well is a terrible argument. There's tons of cards that aren't very accessible, even from a new set. There are even cards from new sets that aren't very accessible, right? I mean, we have the Walking Dead cards or whatever that weren't very accessible, and people were complaining about that. So just stay away from that argument, guys. It doesn't make any sense. Even the word expensive is like, what does that mean? It means something completely different to every single person. So bad argument, okay? Now, as far as the Moxes go, here's my argument for them. I get that they're powerful. I don't need someone to explain to me that they're powerful. I get it. Again, I think Sol Ring is better. Yeah, they cost 0 mana, so you don't even need. I had a couple people like, they cost 0 mana, so you don't even need a land. So you're gonna keep a no land hand because you have a Mox in there in your opening hand. Like I that doesn't even make sense to me. Like, why would you ever do that? Again, we're not playing Modern. We're not playing Legacy. You are playing a game that requires you to be playing 8-10 turns, right? If I'm playing in my opening hand and I see a land, a Sol Ring, and a Rampant Growth, that's way better than me seeing no lands and a couple of Moxes, in my opinion. I think long game. I'm planning for the long game. I'm not planning for turn one. So if you see a couple of Moxes in your opening hand, and I guarantee you there would be a ton of people doing this. I guarantee you there would be a ton of people having no lands in their opening hand, a Mox, Emerald and a Mox Ruby, and going, oh wow, great opening hand because I got 2 Moxes, and then they're stuck there with no lands. I guarantee you would be a lot of people making that fallacy, that error. That's not good, okay? Now, having a 0 mana whatever on, of course that's good. Again, Mana Crypt, that's pretty good too, right? We already have a whole bunch of that stuff. We already have a ton of mana positive mana rocks in the format. Now, should we have more? And again, this is going to get into another comment that I'm going to talk about the auto. We need more auto includes in the format. That's already the case. It's already the case. If I even just make a mono blue deck, how many auto includes can I just shoehorn into, right? Rhystic Study. Why would you not put Rhystic Study in your blue deck, right? Even if you're playing a 5-color deck, you're going to put Rhystic Study in there. Dockside Extortionist, Smothering Tithe, Cyclonic Rift, removal, like there's already a massive list of the auto includes that you want to put in your deck. So we're already there, guys, which brings me to the next situation. I'm playing a 5-color deck, so of course I'm going to want all the Moxes in there, right? Okay, you have 99 cards in your deck. You have to take 5 cards out, right? You take 5 cards out to put the 5 Moxes in, assuming you have them all, right? What am I taking out of my deck for that, right? This is why I try doing deck doctors for my patrons 5-color decks, and I'm like, I don't even know what to take out. Like there's so many cards I want to put in. What do I take out? Do I take out their Beast Within or their Assassin's Trophy or their really good removal? Do I take out the Dockside Extortionist, the Smothering? Like, how many auto includes do you already have in a 5-color deck? I mean, the list is almost endless. And you're going to take 5 cards out of your deck to put 5 Moxes in? Okay, good luck with that. Go ahead. Now, again, I'm going to have a Mox Ruby on turn 1. Great. Do I need red mana? Maybe I do, maybe I don't, right? And I tell this to my patrons all the time when I do 5-color decks for them. Something that adds mana of any color is way more important in a 5-color deck than, in my opinion, than a Mox that only adds a color of 1 mana. I wouldn't put a Sol Ring in a 5-color deck either, right? Because colorless mana is even worse. What you want in a 5-color deck is stuff that adds mana of any color, or ramp is preferable. Again, ramp is always superior to mana rocks, right? Because you're likely not going to lose that for the rest of the game. Mana rocks, you could get off to a good start. Again, I'm getting off on a tangent here because getting off to a good start in a casual commander game, in my opinion, is not that great because you just make yourself the arch enemy. And now you have two Moxes in your opening hand. So that's two less cards you have in your hand, right? So I play a land, Mox, Mox, and then another card, turn one. So I'm down to three cards in my opening hand, right? Or four. But now I've already, half my hand is gone already, and all I've done is make myself the arch enemy. And again, then people are going to go, oh yeah, but now you can do you're going to go off and win the game, but you're not playing casual commander now, right? So we get back into that argument, and I had a lot of the CEDH versus casual thing. I'll get back to that as well in the comments, right? A lot of these comments sort of cover larger topics rather than just covering specific cards, which again is why you would ban or unban a card. So that's why I'm sort of talking about this in that aspect. Let's move on to the next comment. I agree with everything except Emrakul. Interesting. My playgroup tried playing with all the unbanned cards before, and most are actually fine. You hear that, guys? These guys play with the unbanned cards, and they were kind of okay with it, right? Because a guy just so happens I get a Mox Ruby in my opening hand. Okay. Is that really that good? I don't think it is in a commander game. And guess what? Is it really not good? Drawing your Mox Ruby off the top of your library on turn 10. How good is that? It's not. Wow, one man, like, who cares, right? That's not very good, right? You again, I'm going back into the other question here. You want to put 5 Moxes in your deck? How good is drawing a Mox on turn 7 or 8 or 10? Not very good, right? It's just giving you 1 mana. It would be no different than drawing a land off the top of your deck on turn 10 that you would then just play, right? And in a lot of decks, having a land is better. And again, you're not going to lose it to removal. So, but I'm getting back to this question, okay? So this guy, his playgroup unbanned a lot of the cards and everything was fine except Emrakul. I find that very interesting. That's why I added this comment. But Emrakul is just too easy, not as a commander, but in the 99, which I guess I didn't really cover that in the video. I mostly talked about it as a commander. And as a commander, I don't think it's an issue at all. It gives every single deck such an easy win con. It is incredibly easy to cheat out being a creature, and it's just every time it hits the board, it's an auto win for the player using it. How is it an auto win? I don't get this comment. That part of the comment, I'm like, how is that an auto win? There's 3 other opponents, right? So first of all, if I cheated into play, like with a Through the Breach or something, you don't get the extra turn because you're not casting it, right? So if or Elvish Piper, anything that cheats a creature into play, I'm not getting the extra turn. So I don't get that, right? Also, I can think of a lot of really I mean, obviously Emrakul is the best creature. You're not going down like there's the other Emrakul. That's really annoying. I hate that one. Controlling extra turns. Controlling someone else's turn is another thing that I think they should have never done in Magic. I hate it. That's my least favorite thing in all of Magic is someone stealing your turn. I can't stand it. Anyway, so the other Emrakul, I'm not a big fan of that either. Really horrible, awful card in my opinion. But Kozilek and all the other ones, they're just a little bit, Emrakul is just a little bit better than all the rest of those. I think they're all pretty awful. But even Emrakul, I cheated into play again. The Through the Breach scenario where I swing at my opponent, they take 15 damage and sack permanents. I haven't even killed one person, not even one. The other 2 opponents are still sticking around too, and I have done nothing. And all you do is end up unbalancing the game, right? And I say this all the time about like a Blightsteel Colossus. You play you cheat, and by the way, Blightsteel Colossus actually does end the game. There's a perfect example. And Emrakul's not going to end the game. And in a Through the Breach scenario, Blightsteel Colossus is way better because you'll actually kill an opponent with that. Emrakul's not going to kill anybody unless they only have 15 life left, right? Or unless they only have 6 permanents, which how's that going to happen? Like that's unlikely as well. Even either of those scenarios, you're just knocking out the one player. It usually just ends up unbalancing the game. You've sort of put all your eggs into one basket just to knock out one player. You've made yourself the arch enemy. Now the other 2 guys are paying attention to you because you just did this big fancy play and knocked a player out. So now you're going to get ganged up on. You just burned yourself out likely. Your big play, like this, again, this sort of goes into the whole concept of playing the format. Burning yourself up on one big play to kill one opponent is just terrible in my opinion. What does that get you? Again, that's why I think Aetherflux Reservoir, I've really softened on that card because yeah, okay, you killed me, that person usually doesn't end up winning the game because now they have like 8 life or something, or 12 life, and the other two guys can gang up on them very easily and kill them. Typically, is what I see anyway. Um, this like every time it hits the board, it's an auto win for that player. Really? Man, I think of a card like Expropriate. People talk about Cyclonic Rift this time. Like, I think Cyclonic Rift is probably a way better play and only costs 7 mana. Than, like, as far as giving you a massive advantage over your opponents, I think Cyclonic Rift is probably a way better play than an Emrakul. Emrakul is going to target one person. Like, is your playgroup playing board wipes or remove? I know Emrakul is immune to a lot of targeted removal, most of it, but board wipes or something? No. Sacrifice, settle the wreckage, comeuppance. Maybe comeuppance wouldn't work, but there's lots of ways to get around that scenario. So maybe you guys need to be doing that more. I was kind of surprised when, like, I'm just thinking it's an auto win for as soon as it hits the table. Really? Anyway, moving on. People sleep on Biorhythm. Again, this is another card that I would unban in a heartbeat, and I'm surprised how many comments I got about it. People sleep on Biorhythm and also kind of misunderstand it. I think I understand it. It's Craterhoof number 2. I thought that was an interesting comment. In green-based token decks. I think every tuned token deck would want it. It's probably not as good as Craterhoof because you drop your own life total, but it'd be another great way to turn a big... Okay, so you're sort of making your own argument here, where you're like, okay, it's Craterhoof number 2. Craterhoof already exists in the format and is better, as you admit here. Craterhoof is a better win con than Biorhythm in almost every green deck. So, I mean, you're making the argument for me. You're making the argument for ban Craterhoof and unban Biorhythm, right? Giving your opponent one more win con in a deck where there are, Craterhoof's already a better win, and in a green deck you can very easily search for creatures, and sorcery's not at all, right? So you're sort of making my argument here for why Biorhythm could very easily be unbanned. I think. I don't know. All right, moving on. Dude, Braids is terrible, and of course by terrible they don't mean that it's really, really bad. It's terrible in a game, especially on the off chance that you can get it turn 1 or 2. It makes games incredibly unfun when you have to hope to draw a 1 mana removal spell. LOL. Okay, again, there's a couple things going on here. First of all, you're in the Magic Christmas Land scenario where my opponent has a Dark Ritual in their hand and they get their Braids out turn 2. Okay, what do they have on the board? Right? How are they winning the game? If all they're doing is I Dark Ritual out my Braids and then everyone has to sack their first turn lands, okay, and then they sack their Braids because they have nothing on the board, and then what? Again, we're in the Magic Christmas Land scenario here where, well, what if this turn 1 play happened? And, again, we're not in casual here. We're not like, how is this game playing out, right? Even if you're at your LGS and some guy's walking around with his Braids deck and turn 1 gets out Braids, everyone's just like, okay, have fun playing by yourself, buddy, and they just go play with someone else. Like that. And I will get to the LGS thing again. I saved it for the last question because it's a bigger topic here. But I'm just thinking, a lot of people complained about the LGS thing, and I'm just thinking some guy sits down with their Braids, or they sit down and they play turn 1 Black Lotus, Time Walk, Ancestral Recall, and I'm just thinking, just don't play with that guy anymore. Right? I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. Why are you playing with... It would be no different. How is this any different than a guy who first turn or second turn casts Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation? How is that any different? What's the difference? I'm just not going to play with that guy anymore. Right? You can already do that. Remember the format we're playing, guys. There's already plenty of nasty turn 1 plays, nasty turn... I can cast an Armageddon on turn 2 or 3 very easily in this format without using any banned cards. What are you going to do if I do that? If I cast my Armageddon on turn 3 or 4, what are you going to do? Probably complain. You might not want to play with me anymore, right? We're already in that scenario. We're already in the scenario where I could combo off and win on turn 1. That's the format we're playing here, guys. So what are you going to do there? This is no different than a guy playing Braids on turn 2. and making everyone sack their lands. What's the difference? It's the same thing, same scenario. And again, people will go, oh, well, you're just giving more scenarios where that could happen. Okay, but we already have a million scenarios where that can happen. What is a million and one? What's the difference? Again, back to the Mana Rocks thing. And I had another guy comment, there's already Mana Crypt and Soul Ring and you want more? What's the difference? There are already a ton of free counter spells, extra turns, mana. What's the difference if we have a bunch more? You're going to have a guy who sticks all the Moxes in his deck so that he can have an explosive turn one, and he's going to have all these super busted cards. Okay, and don't play with that guy. What else do you want me to say? Just don't play with the guy who's going to do that, right? Let's teach these people a lesson. I hate to be that guy, but this is really, like, you're playing a CEDH deck, dude. Go to that table over there where they're playing competitive decks and leave us alone. That's what I would say. Maybe people need to speak up more. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. Again, I'm going off on a tangent here, and I want to cover this with the last comment. So I'll move on and I'll get back to it. All right, moving on. The problem with Ancestral Recall is the efficiency. No question. It's a absurdly busted spell. No question. If your deck has blue, then you should always play this card if legal. So here we go again. It's an auto. How many auto? If your deck is red, you should play Dockside Extortionist. No kidding. If your deck is white, you should play Smothering Tithe. Yep, you should. If your deck is blue, you should play Fierce Guardianship. How many of these cards already exist in the format, right? So the argument of this card can't be unbanned because it's an auto include in every deck. The only reason why Dockside Extortionist isn't in every single red deck is because of the price. If people could afford to put it in all their red decks, they would. Same as Smothering Tithe, a lot of those cards, right? Just not a good argument. It's the blue Soul Ring, except it's around 5K. So again, we're getting to the price thing, which, okay, and the history and context are important, actually. The history and the context are not important, actually. They have nothing to do with anything. Banning a card in a format because of the history of that card, oh boy, that has nothing to do with anything, right? Again, we have to be objective here, guys, all right? So getting back to the first part, though, the problem with Ancestral Recall is the efficiency. Yes, it's a busted card, no question. The one point I want to make here, and I thought about this after I had already edited the video and posted it, in the Commander format, okay, I'm making a Commander deck. I want everyone to answer this question, okay? Well, not everyone, but think about this question. I'm making a Commander deck. It's blue, obviously. I have one slot left. I can put in Ancestral Recall, or I can put in Rhystic Study. Which one do you put in? Ancestral Recall is super efficient. 1 mana, draw 3 cards. Doesn't get any better than that. Rhystic Study is 3 mana, but can draw you way more than 3 cards. Way more. I've seen people draw 20 cards off of the Rhystic Study. So what's better? 1 mana, draw 3 cards, or 3 mana, draw 20 cards and force one of your opponent's removal spells out of their hand. Okay, if I know people think this is a hot take because Ancestral Recall is in the Power 9, blah, blah, blah. In a Commander game, I would rather put a Rhystic Study in my command. Like, as far as it's a better card, I would rather have a Rhystic Study than an Ancestral Recall, right? And I don't play Rhystic Study, by the way. So again, I'm not making a case for why these cards are good. It's got nothing to do with anything. The point I'm trying to make is, in a Commander game, I would rather see my opponent play an Ancestral Recall than play a Rhystic Study. If they play an Ancestral Recall, I'm like, oh wow, draw 3 cards for 1 mana, that's pretty good. If they play a Rhystic Study, I'm like, oh, here we go, Rhystic Study. Like, I hate that card, right? I'm gonna have to pay the 1 mana. I'm gonna have to probably use a removal spell on it. They're probably gonna draw a ton of cards before I can get it off the table. I think it's better. Yeah, it costs a couple more mana in a casual Commander game, maybe even in a CEDH game, right? Because in a CEDH game, right, if you guys ever watch CEDH games, Rhystic Study's going off, man, because they're all casting those free counter spells and stuff. And Mana Rocks and it's busted. Even in a CEDH game, Rhystic Study is busted. I think it's better than Ancestral Recall in a Commander game. That's just me. All right. Another sort of comment that is covering a lot of comments. A common misconception of demo, that would be me, is that CEDH and Commander are 2 different formats. It's not a common misconception. In fact, in that video, I specifically talked about how they aren't different formats, but they should be. They're different names. Why are, if I go up to a table and I say, hey, you guys playing a CEDH game? And they're like, no. Why the difference? Why do I even ask? Because I have a CEDH deck. To me, that's no different than me walking up to a table and going, hey, you guys playing Modern? Oh, you're not playing Modern? Okay, I'll go over to a Modern table. What's the difference? Completely different. You're doing something different. Right now, there isn't that defined list of banned cards and what you should, maybe there should be, though. Right? This is the argument I'm making. Hint, they are not. Yes, thank you for clarifying. I already knew that. It's just a guideline. And as is, by the way, a whole lot of things, right? Again, why don't we play Armageddon in casual games? Why is mass land destruction frowned upon in casual games? It's a guideline. There's no rule that says you can't do it. You can, right? There's no rule that says you can't combo off on turn one in a commander game. People do it all the time, but we call that CEDH. That's why there's the difference, right? And that's why you need some cards to be banned. So this is why I put this in here, right? Again, if you, in the broader topic is here, what if we actually did separate the formats, right? And this is why I have changed my opinion on things, right? I thought, okay, well, if we, and a lot of these cards, like, again, as I said, I think Thassa's Oracle would be banned in Casual Commander, but obviously not in CEDH. I think Flash would be banned in CEDH, not Casual Commander. I think a lot of these really busted. I know this seems funny, but a lot of these busted cards like Black Lotus, Ancestral Recall, and Time Walk, I would be okay with in a casual game. I think in CEDH, they would just be too good. It would be too easy. You would just be moving towards your victory way, way quicker, right? So I know it seems backwards, but, right, CEDH is already really silly with how quickly the game ends. So having all those cards in there would only make it even more silly. Whereas in a casual game, drawing 3 cards on turn 7 or whatever is good, but it's probably not as good as it would be in a CEDH game where you have all the cheap mana rocks and the combo potential and all that, right? So the reason why I changed my opinion in the first place is because I was like, okay, we should separate the formats, casual, CEDH, and then you would have a different ban list for each one. And I started thinking about all the banned cards think about it, guys. And again, this is going into the whole entire topic here. Imagine these formats are separated. We now have Casual Commander and CEDH. What should be banned in Casual Commander? Start making a list. That list would be enormous. All the mass land destruction, Decree of Annihilation, Armageddon, right? Probably free counter spells, mana positive mana rocks, stacks pieces like Stasis, Expropriate maybe. Go to the go on EDH Rec. They have a salty cards list. Essentially what people hate playing against. All those cards gone, right? All the cards that people hate playing against would get banned in Casual Commander. Now, is that a good thing? Maybe it is. Maybe that is what we should do. I don't know. Is that what we, again, this is for conversation purposes. Is that what we should do? For all the people that are getting on my case about unbanning cards, okay, so are you in the camp of let's ban more cards then? Or you just, the way it is perfect, right? Because again, the people saying you can't unban the Moxes, well, then I guess we should ban all positive mana rocks, right? Oh, you can't unban Tellurian Academy, then I guess we should probably ban Gaia's Cradle. Oh, you can't unban limited resources, well, then maybe we should ban Armageddon too, right? Because, right, or Keldon Firebombers or something, right? So, and so now, is that the argument you're making? We should ban a whole bunch more cards too? Okay, maybe we should do that. But then we get back into the slippery slope argument where, okay, now are we just going to start banning anything that destroys more than one land? Now we're getting tricky here now, right? Again, this is a monumental task for the rules committee to try to figure that out, right? Again, you want to ban all the mana positive mana rocks, okay? I mean, I would be okay with that. Again, no, there's no difference there for me. You want to ban free counter spells, okay, but then what about deflecting SWAT? And we go down that argument again. So it just becomes really, really difficult. That's why I err on the side of unbanning things, because if we're going to be banning things, it literally never ends. It literally never ends, right? Because they come out with new cards all the time. There has been cards that came out this year that people call for to get banned, right? There has been cards that have been banned and that just came out, in the last few years. So it literally never ends. We'd be banning cards all the time. That list would be getting bigger, 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 right? So, and then that's why I think, I would be totally okay with unban a ton of cards like the ones I mentioned that I think are maybe not that good, like Primeval Titan. I'm surprised I didn't get a ton of pushback on Primeval Titan. So maybe people have finally sort of caught up to my opinion there, where it's actually not super busted in the format anymore because we have so many better options for stuff like that, or good options anyway. So maybe unban a bunch of those cards and then we can, ban some other stuff. I'm okay with banning cards. I'm just saying, we're sort of there's not a ton of consistency here with regards to this stuff, and maybe I'm being a little inconsistent. It is really really tough. It's really really tough to decide. And again, I'm trying to be objective here. I'm not being like, oh, I just don't like that card. I want it banned because I don't like it, or I want it. And I know there's a lot of people out there that. I played against my buddy's deck that does this thing, and now I want that card banned so I don't have to play against it all the time. Maybe you should just talk to your buddy. Anyway, that brings me into the last comment, which I will get to. At the shops I find myself at these days, I'm lucky if I can at least hang on with a few permanents until I get a wipe. I can't wipe to rebuild faster. I wipe because I need to keep up. And I had a bunch of comments about this, about the LGS I play at, and right. And I think this is why a lot of people, when I say stuff like unban Black Lotus or Time Walker, Ancestral Recall, or the Moxes, people will go, okay, well, that guy at my LGS who already has a super busted deck, he's just going to put the Black Lotus in his deck and his deck's going to be more busted. Okay, what's the actual issue here? Is the actual issue the card? That sounds like the issue is that guy. That sounds like the issue, right? And I think I'm getting so much pushback here because people are imagining. Again, we unbanned the Moxes. Now all those people at my LGS that play those super powerful decks are going to shoehorn the Moxes in, and it's just going to speed their decks up even more. Okay, what's the actual issue here, right? Like I say about Gaia's Cradle. I'm totally fine with a Gaia's Cradle in your Unicorn Tribal deck. I'm less okay with it in your Elf Ball deck, where you're just going to run everybody over in 4 turns, right? What's the actual issue here? Is the actual issue the cards? And it's funny, if you go back and look at my Are They Casual video that I just did a few weeks ago, right? People almost have the exact opposite opinion, right? The comment I saw a lot on that video, right? Because I'm talking about in that video, because there's a lot of overlap here with that video and what's banned in Commander. And it's funny how the opinions are almost flip-flopped. You go back and watch that video talking about, are these cards casual, right? So I'm talking about cards that aren't banned, obviously. And again, I'm talking about the mana positive mana rocks that aren't banned in the format, right? There's a bunch that are banned and there's a bunch that aren't banned, right? I'm talking about Necropotence, Force of Will, Gaia's Cradle, all these really powerful cards. Again, also really expensive cards. There's a lot of relation here between these two videos. And what I see a lot in the comments of that video, I see a bunch of people saying, it's not the individual cards, it's what is your deck doing. These cards are casual as far as I'm concerned, as long as your deck is casual. A lot of comments like that. So how does that not apply here? How does that, if you're playing a Gaia's Cradle in your Unicorn Tribal deck just to help your really janky underwhelming deck perform a little better, what if I put a Black Lotus in my Unicorn Tribal? What's the difference? Do I care? Like if somebody sits down with their Unicorn Tribal deck and says, by the way, guys, I proxied a Black Lotus and I have it in this deck. Is everyone okay with that? I'd be like, I'm good. No problem. Why would I have a problem with that, right? I wouldn't. I mean, I would understand how other people might because it is a banned card, but at the end of the day, it comes down to what are you doing in your deck? Are you playing a casual deck? And I think there's a lot of people now, because the power level in the format in general has been ramped up, right? And I've talked about this with commanders that were considered busted, like Sidisi was considered a busted commander back in the day. Nobody plays it anymore, right? I mean, well, people play it, but certainly you're not going to be terrified of it. Or Mael the Anima, right? Considered a really busted commander back in the day, not so much anymore, right? The format has changed and there's a lot more powerful cards. Again, another reason why some of these banned cards aren't nearly as good as they used to be, because we have Dockside Extortionist and all these other cards that have made things a lot different. And I think a lot of people are dealing with, I go to my LGS and I have to play against all these super powerful decks that have Thassa's Oracle win cons, and I don't need these cards unbanned to make their life easier. Okay, Black Lotus is not your issue, right? It's already banned in the format. So how Black Lotus is not the issue. Moxes are not your issue. You already have an issue. Deal with that issue first. Deal with that issue that you're already dealing with at your LGS, and then we'll come back and talk about what cards should be banned. Don't be thinking, okay, well, there's already a guy that's going to combo off and win at my LGS on turn 4 or 5 all the time. And so now that you're just making my life more difficult, having to deal with that. Your life's already difficult, and you have something that you need to deal with. Okay? Now, what's the solution? Again, this is a broader topic, which is why I saved this to last. The broader topic is, again, where's the defining line between a competitive deck and a casual deck? There isn't one. We have the power level, thing that is like, okay, well, what, again, that almost is meaningless, because my idea of an 8 is someone's other, for someone else, that's a 6. I had another comment where a guy's like, what kind of groups are you playing in? Because for me, turn 6, the game is over. That's casual. For his play group or his LGS, the game end, I combo off on turn 6 is considered casual. CEDH is like combo off on turn 3. I'm like, wow, really? Okay. I mean, wow. The format has changed, no question. I think that's a weird comment because, again, where's the interaction? Again, we get back to this, like any really busted card you have an issue with, more removal, guys. More removal, more counterspells. This is why I started putting lots of removal in my decks, because everyone was playing these busted cards. Someone would drop a Vorinclex and I'd be like, ugh, game over. If I have a removal spell in my hand, I don't care. I'll just Vorinclex, no problem. You just paid 8 mana for that card. I paid 1 mana for my removal spell. On we go. I got it right. That was my answer, and it worked. Okay, so I would also suggest to do that. But at the end of the day, there is a bigger issue here, and for some people, again, the power level thing doesn't really work, because my idea of an 8 is another guy's idea of a 6. We have the getting back to the casual video, I play a dual land, and again, read the comments of that video. Lots of people saying dual lands are absolutely casual, and other people saying absolutely they are not. Again, we're getting back into it's a powerful card and it's really expensive. The exact argument I made in that video. Is people tend to not like cards that are really expensive and also powerful, which is a lot of the cards I was talking about on this list, right? A lot of the cards, there's a ton of overlap there. And again, I have sort of a flip-flopped argument where on that video, a lot of people are like, hey, this stuff's fine as long as you're playing a casual deck. But yet in this video, I don't have that. Why aren't you guys saying the same thing where, hey, Black Lotus is fine as long as your deck is super casual, or I'm fine with a Time Walk as long as you're playing Fish Tribal or something, right? So that's my line of thinking here, and that's not by accident why I did those 2 videos close together like that. It's an ongoing discussion. Again, that's why I like making videos like this. Clearly, I like talking about this stuff too, as I sit here and go on and on and on about it. I like talking about it. But I think the bigger issue here, and again, I'm going to get into my year-end video at some point, because we are getting closer to the end of the year, obviously. I'm going to talk about this at length, about where the format is going. There's been a lot of talk about it lately. A lot of people have... A lot of doomsayers, right? A lot of people have these foreboding sort of opinions about how the format's ruined. The format will never be ruined, okay? And again, I'm going to talk about this exact same thing in my year-end video. The format will never be ruined, okay, if you don't let it be ruined, okay? You don't have to play those cards, okay? If Wizards of the Coast comes out with a card that's just absurdly busted and stupid, you just don't play it. Or don't play it in your group. Again, I'll be a little cliche here, and I'll give a Gandhi quote: "Be the change you want to see." Right. So that's why I don't play these cards, guys. I don't play Soul Ring in my decks. I don't play Rhystic Study. I don't play Cyclonic Rift. I don't play Smothering Tithe. It's because I don't really want my opponents playing them. I never play Vorinclex. I hate that card. I never play Aetherflux Reservoir. I never play Craterhoof. You know why? Because I'm not a hypocrite. That's why. Because I don't want to see those cards, so I don't play them. Right? And if you're in the situation where, easy for you to say, I play against the guy who wins with Craterhoof Behemoth and runs my butt over every single game, maybe just stop playing with that guy. I don't know what else to tell you. Okay. I mean, if you're stuck, join my Patreon. Like, honestly, join my Patreon and play on my Discord. I don't think I've ever seen a crater hoof in every game. Every game I've played on there, I don't think I've ever seen a crater hoof. I don't think I've seen an Aetherflux reservoir. Nobody really. There's are some combos. One guy in particular loves his really janky, and they are janky combos. And when you see those janky combos, it's like, oh, you almost enjoy losing to them because they're so interesting and janky. But none of the no Thassus Oracle wins, no Kiki Jiki combos really. That's so that would be my suggestion. Try playing online. I'm really sorry. Like, again, I don't love that the format is going in this direction. I was the guy talking about this 2 years ago at the beginnings of my channel. Again, I will put the link up for the video where I started going, because I saw this coming from a mile away, guys. I saw this coming from a mile away. Okay. My Orvar video where I talked about Orvar, the all form, and I thought that was a busted commander. And there was a bunch of busted commanders in Kaldheim. It was one of my very first videos. It was like maybe the 10th video I ever made. And I went on a giant rant about the direction the format was going. Okay. I've been talking about this since the beginnings of my channel. The answer isn't to ban a bunch of cards. That's not the answer. The answer is for us to all stick together. Again, I don't want to sound cliche, but it's, you find your like-minded people, you find the groups that you can play with. We all just don't play these cards. We don't play these commanders. Again, Turgrid, another one that everyone complained about from Kaldheim, and I'm just thinking, who's actually playing that commander? Everybody hates that commander. They hate it. But yet there's like 3,000 decks on EDH Rec. Like, who's playing that? Who in your play group, like the three of you are, you hate playing against this guy's Turgrid deck, but he keeps showing up with it every time. Tell him to stop. Maybe people just need to stand up for themselves more. Maybe, and I know people, again, this is another comment I hear a lot, and I'm just going on all kinds of tangents, but there's a lot to talk about here, which is why I wanted to make this video. And I mentioned a couple times in videos in the past, if I see this thing, I'm like, see ya. I pick up my cards and I go. And people are like, oh, that's what a crybaby, blah, blah. No. That's how people learn, guys. That's how people learn. When a guy combos off on turn 3 in a casual game, I'm not playing with you anymore. See ya. If more people did that, he would stop doing it. That's how people learn. Don't tell me I'm a crybaby, okay? The way we keep this format casual is by every time someone shows up with their whatever deck is you don't think is casual, you're just like, sorry, man. And you can be nice about it. You don't have to throw a hissy fit and flip the table. You can be nice about it and say, listen, guy, I don't think your deck is casual, and I'm not having fun here with my, OG Chromium deck. Like, I don't even get, and I've heard people say the argument, oh, what's the big deal? Win on turn 4, just scoop up and play another game. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is my commander cost 8 mana and I never get to cast it because the game doesn't go that long. That's the big deal, because I'm actually playing a really casual deck and you're not, right? So have these discussions with people. Again, rule 0 always wins the day here, right? I didn't have this advantage because I played mostly online for a long time. The advantage of the LGS and the shops you're going to and the, now you can have the rule 0 discussion. That's the best part of Commander. One of the best parts of this entire format is you get to have the rule 0 discussion of, okay, what's everyone playing? You know what everyone's playing. Their commander's right there. You get to see it. Oh, you're playing a Turgrid deck? Yeah, I'm good, right? Or you're like, oh, you're playing your Turgrid deck? Okay, I'm going to pull out my deck that is 90% removal, right? That's another way to teach these guys a lesson. I know that sounds bad, but another way to teach these people a lesson is I have my one deck that is all counter spells, all removal, right? And when they're sitting there complaining about it, too bad, so sad, right? You didn't want me complaining about you playing that deck, so don't complain about me playing the removal or the counter spells or the whatever. And again, that's why I put a lot of removal in my decks, and I ended up backing off the removal because I put so much removal in my decks. Everything, Smothering Tithe, gone. Rhystic Study, gone. Like, just gone, right? And people started not having, and I was like, okay, maybe I should back off a little and let my opponent have their Smothering Tithe for a few turns and stuff, because I did go a little overboard. But that also is another answer, right? The answer is I have tons of removal in my deck and I just don't let that guy do anything. Or I have, again, because if you're in that LGS and you're playing against that guy again and again and again, you just engineer your deck to beat him, right? Dude's playing a Turgrid deck, I put Sigarda in my deck or something, or Taraju Preserver, so I don't have to sacrifice anything, Bam, right? Just start engineering your deck to beat theirs. That's another answer to do it, right? You don't have to just scoop and say, I'm not playing with you. Although I do encourage people to do that. Again, I know people don't like it, but you're going to force me to sit here and suffer just so you can have fun? Sorry, that's not what playing a four-player casual game is all about. We should all be having fun. If we're not all having fun, right, that's the agreement. When we all sit down to play a four-player casual commander game, the agreement, the before we even get to Rule Zero, the agreement that is being had there, the social agreement that is being had there is we're all going to sit down and have a fun casual game of Commander. That's what's supposed to occur. If that's not occurring, okay, then why are we even playing? That's my stance on it, right? So I got a lot out there, obviously, and that was my plan here. My plan was I'm talking about the banned cards in the format, but also I wanted to get into a larger discussion. And again, I think it was just so funny to me that I read the comments on my casual video and see all the people saying, as long as you're playing a casual deck, I don't care what you use. Okay, so then why does that not apply to all these banned cards as well? I think, what's the difference to me? It's all the same to me. So once again, let me know in the comments what you think. I think this is, again, I like having these conversations. I think it's really important to have. I've had a bunch of videos talking about banning. I also have an entire playlist of what is casual commander that I encourage you guys to also check out. There's a bunch of videos that I threw in there because I ended up talking about this a lot in a lot of my videos. I guess I'll throw this video in there as well. I ended up talking about that subject, about what actually is casual commander. Like, how do we define it? And trying to get these ideas in people's heads. So again, if you're the guy showing up at the casual game with Thassa's Oracle or whatever the case may be, this video might get you thinking, hey, maybe I shouldn't be doing that, right? Maybe the people in your play group who aren't having a lot of fun aren't speaking up. So maybe you're watching this video and going, hey, maybe I should stop doing that. Maybe I should stop comboing off on turn 4 or 5 because maybe no one else is having fun. So I'm bringing awareness to that situation as well. But that is it. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. I'm sure you will, and I love to read your guys' comments, so please do. That is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.